Welcome to today's special documentary on sustainable farming practices. I'm Mary Mbera, and we will dive deep into essential topics for every farmer, rancher, and anyone involved in the agricultural industry, specifically livestock feeds, feeding practices, and feed supply.
Okay, my name is William Ayako. I work for Calro here, and my department is Forage Research. I am the head of the Forage Research program here in this institution, and I'm happy to host you today as we talk about livestock feeds and feeding and feed supply.
Different types of foliage like grasses, legumes, and specific fodder plants provide critical fiber that helps cows produce better milk and maintain healthy digestion. This is especially important in small-scale systems where farmers may not have access to large quantities of commercial feed.
I would say the industry is driven by small-scale farmers. Small-scale farmers with limited land capital. On average, our farmers are having 1 to 2 acres of land. That is where he has his household, and is growing stable crops for the animals, for the house to feed the family, and the same piece of land is growing the feed for the animals. Now, our recommendation based on the research work that we have done here is that we have different types of forages, but where our small-scale farmers do exist, the basic feed is Napier grass. Why Napier grass? Because it has more biomass. You can get, per unit area, you get a lot of it. In terms of biomass production, it supersedes any other feeds. But when it comes to quality, mainly proteins, then it is limited. So we have to grow high protein supplements like Lucerne and sweet potato vines, so that by the time we are feeding, we make a balance of Napier and a bit of Lucerne and sweet potato vines. And that feeding should be consistent. So the ratio that we recommend to meet the basic needs of a cow and produce milk production and to be profitable is that 70% of that diet should be Napier grass, and 30% should be from protein supplements like potato vines and Lucerne. Once you have done that balance, then you will be able to meet the requirement of the animal, and you will manage to sustain a milk production level of close to 20% per cow per day, and that will make it profitable. I know some people are trying to increase milk production by using concentrates. Dairy concentrate is a commercial feed.
Yes.
That farmers buy from the shop. The moment you are in that business, then you are interfering in the enterprise profitability. But once you can grow these things in the farm, then you are trying to optimize or maximize your profitability. It is business. Therefore, using these combinations of Napier, Lucerne, and sweet potato vines, we are encouraging what we call forage-based dairy production that is more profitable with less concentrates. We are not pushing those feed manufacturers out of business, but we would like to make the enterprise profitable by using less concentrate. Therefore, a forage-based dairy system is a system that will require a cow to feed only on 600 kilos of concentrates in a year. That translates to about 2 kilograms concentrate daily, but the bulk of the requirements is supplied from the high-quality forages that we are growing.
Good feeding systems ensure that the animal receives balanced diet, combining essential proteins, carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals to promote growth, milk production, and overall well-being.
Our feeding system is based on 2 seasons, and we have the rainy season feeding and dry season feeding. How do we make the system resilient to climate change? We know drought is with us. From January, February, March is a dry spell in most parts of the country. So during that time, we are now banking on conserved feeds like silage, potato vines, mixture, and fresh lucerne. During the rainy season, we'll be feeding fresh napier grass with the lucerne and potato vines. So that is the strategy, that during the dry spell, we embark on conserved feeds. In the rainy season, we have surplus of green fresh material, and that is what we will be feeding the animals. You grow a grass that you don't graze the animals on, because grazing the animals on those feeds also interferes with the longevity of the grass. So cut and carry system is the best for smallholder farmers. And you should grow those grasses that are suitable for cut and carry. What I'm saying, like napier grass, lucerne, and sweet potato vines, they are ideal crops for cut and carry. Letting the animals to grow and graze for themselves is not very good for commercialization, because it is the animal go and graze, but you don't know how much it has grazed and fed. It is common, if you look most farmers grazing by the roadside, they compromise the quality of the grass, they don't know how much the animal has eaten, and it will be dictated by the grazing time. The cow requires feed, whether it is midnight, whether it is midday, whether it at whatever time, the feed should be there for the animal to graze. They are in the wild, they just graze, but we condition them. We try to condition the animals, which is not very good for commercialization. Small-scale farmers are limited. Medium-scale farmers are advantaged. Large-scale farmers are equally advantaged. So we have different feeding systems for different categories of farmers. If it's a large-scale commercial farm who has gone fully into commercialization of dairy, then I would recommend total mixed ration, TMR feeding system. Total mixed ration, where you group the animals based on their production, and you say this group, this is their diet, that group, that is their diet, that group, that is their diet. But for small-scale farmers, it's conventional feeding. The feeding that we have explained here is one that suits small-scale farmers.
In the rolling fields of dairy farms around the world, one question looms large. How much does a dairy cow need to eat each day? It's a question that holds the key to producing high-quality milk, ensuring the health of the cows, and optimizing farm productivity.
Regardless of the breed, the intake of a cow is determined by the body weight and milk production level. So it is important to know how much does my cow weigh, because the voluntary intake is calculated as a percent of the live body weight, mainly on forages. But if you factor in milk production, then there is a ratio for calculating how much do I add for a liter of milk. Say, for example, cow 1 is weighing 400 kilos and another cow is weighing 500 kilos. In terms of dry matter intake, they won't be the same. If, say, for example, the feed they are getting has a voluntary intake of 3% per body weight, then the lighter cow will take less and the heavier cow will take more because of the weight factor. But when it comes to milk production, maybe the lighter cow produces more milk than the heavier cow. Then you will have to base on your calculation on production based on the level of milk production of the lighter cow that produces more than the heavier cow. That is for example. But if the heavier cow produces more milk than the lighter cow, then the requirements will inversely correlate with the lighter cow and the milk amount of milk production.
Around the globe, dairy farming varies from region to region, with farmers using a wide array of feeds to nourish their cows. The type of feed a cow receives not only impacts its health and milk, but also reflects the unique agricultural practice of each region.
Like if you go to the high altitude rainfall areas like Nyandarua, areas around Polo, then these winds will grow very slowly. Even for Lucerne, the soil factor will be too acidic and it will require liming. Therefore, there are other forages you can grow that are specific for their region specific. Like, for example, in high altitude areas, Napier will still survive, okay? But some are not frost tolerant. So when their heat is stored with frost, then you find that you can lose a crop. And therefore, for those areas, you may need to grow fodder types like high altitude composite maize, oats, and for other legumes like veg, which are quite good for those climatic areas. When you go to the range areas, rangeland areas, we have range grasses, which are ideal for those areas. And therefore, as Calro, we have developed a farmer-based application, which we call it Calro Selector. You can just key in your area, starting by the county, sub-county in your mobile phone, up to the ward level. And then you ask the selector to tell you which are the appropriate crops or forages for this particular locality. In that app, we have factored in soil types, rainfall in those areas, temperatures, and etc.
There is a lot that needs to be done in order to have, one, the support systems to dairy and to other value chains that are in line with the requirements of this new era. So what we have done here, for example, is to look at forages, because forages that are going to be resilient in terms of climate change. We have forages like sweet potato vines that can do well even when they are challenged with maybe prolonged periods of drought without rains. There is also climate smart practices that we are trying to embrace, like for example intercrop of grasses with legumes, so that we minimize on the use of practices like weeding. Because once we don't disturb the soil, it means that you can retain your moisture for longer period of time, and therefore that becomes a climate smart. We're also looking at climate smart forages like bracharia that can be grown and they are tolerant to probably periods of drought, and farmers can harvest and use in terms of feeding of the animals. So that is some ways that we're trying to look at this. The other thing that we're also focusing our attention on is how to do conservation, such that even when you are confronted with a situation of prolonged droughts, we should not see significant drop in terms of milk production in the country because of sufficiency in terms of food. So we are training farmers on practices of conservation of forages that they can utilize during those prolonged periods of drought. And today we are going to see such kind of an illustration of what we do with Napier desmodium as an intercrop, being a silage, and sorghum silage. They can also utilize for their maize so that they can have the silage to use during the dry season. Also, the mix between that silage, it should be like you are conserving both energy and protein. So we are mixing like maize with dolichos to supply the protein. The dolichos to supply the protein. We have Napier with desmodium, so that there's a complete meal that can be conserved as silage. Oats with veg in the highlands. That is another climate smart kind of intercrop that you are having, and you are conserving a silage, and you are illustrating to farmers that this is a climate smart crop. So there are very many initiatives that are out there to address the issues of climate change in the various value chains, whether it's dairy, beef, or the other value chains that farmers may have.
The selection of a dairy cow's breed is one of the most important decisions a farmer can make. It determines not only the quality and quantity of milk produced, but also the health, longevity, and efficiency of the cow. In dairy farming, breed selection is more than just a matter of preference, it's a science that influences the entire operation.
And I want to look at this on matters dairy, because there is the dairy aspect and also the beef production. So in dairy, this is one of the questions that have been there. We have been looking at it as a research institution about which way do we go breeding in this country in relation to dairy. And we have one of the activities that we are carrying out in this center that is called the breed comparison trial, the forage-based system of production. So you are right in mentioning that many farmers may not know which breed to choose against what environment, and there is always the genetics and environment interaction that is transcribed into the productivity of that animal or its potential. So many farmers feel very much attracted to breeds that will produce a lot of milk in literature. But when these animals are taken out there into the farming systems that we have, they don't produce optimally. Why? Is because the genetics are not matched to the environment. In this trial we are having here, we have a Holstein Friesian, we have the Jersey, we have the Sahiwal, and we have a cross between the Holstein Friesian and the Sahiwal that you are trying to see which animal fits best at the systems of production that is forage based. That means we are using at least 90% of the diet of the animals coming from forage. And then only 10% is coming from concentrates. Why are we doing that? Is because we are looking at profitable milk production, not quantity, but profitability. And what you have seen is that the cross between the Holstein Friesian and the Sahiwal is comparing very well with the Holstein in terms of production. Only that it is even superior in terms of the quality of milk that we get. So a processor out there that wants to get milk that is wholesome, that is good in butterfat content, protein content, then this becomes a breed that you can give to farmers. So that research aspect is still continuing so that we can look at these animals on a long term, because breeding is a long term aspect. And we hope that in future we are going to come up with a very good plan of how we should be doing our breeding based on our systems of production and what the market is looking for. And it should also be friendly to the farmer because we want to improve their livelihoods in terms of how much profit they get back to their pockets. That's what we are doing in a nutshell.
Tunaonyesha wakulima, wale wakulima wadogo, especially to us, tunaenda wale wakulima wadogo ambao wanataka ng'ombe wa maziwa, but namna kuwalea huwa ni mzigo. Ukienda kwa breeds like Friesian, Asha, hizi exotic breed inakuwa ni mzigo kwa wakulima wadogo. Lakini ukienda kwa wakulima wenye wako aliyejuu kidogo wana manage. But now for us tunakuja kwa wale wadogo. Nataka awe na ng'ombe, gaja hatoi maziwa mingi sana, but aweze kumaintain. One, ukienda ng'ombe like the Sahiwal au Maroon, wanatoa up to 10-15 liters a day. Lakini kuna Sahiwal wanatoa 30 to 40 a day. But now kumaintain ni kazi. So tunadvise wakulima, instead of going to Friesian na hawataweza kumaintain, you go to a crossbreed between Sahiwal and the Friesian. One, Sahiwal ni hardy, wanaweza tembea muda mrefu kitafutia chakula. Two, ni resistant, mambo na magonjwa iko minimum, sio sana compared to other breeds. Then unaweza ukipata a cross ambaye ametoka between the Sahiwal and the Friesian, anakuja hapo in between, so that atakuwa na maziwa nyingi kuliko the pure Sahiwal, atakuwa na however less kwa hiyo nini, but hiyo maziwa itakuwa na mafuta mingi. Naye huyo Sahiwal, huyo cross ambaye ametoka katikati ya Sahiwal na Friesian, atakuwa kwa magonjwa, atakuwa resistant, ambao wakulima wengi wamesikia tu ng'ombe ni mgonjwa, hata ameanza kupona kitambo afikie kama ni Friesian atakuwa amekufa. Na unapata at times mkulima ameenda amechukua loan kwa finance whatever, so kabla malize kulipa loan, ule ng'ombe alinunua kama ni Friesian ashakufa. But with the crossbreed, huyo kwa hapo ako resistant kwa magonjwa, atamanage.
Dairy farming, a cornerstone of agriculture, feeding millions across the globe, yet beneath the surface of this industry, there are significant gaps that farmers, researchers, and policymakers are working tirelessly to address.
Industry is bedeviled by mainly quantity and quality feeds for our livestock. The bulk of what our animals are feeding are co-products, mainly maize stovers, wheat straw, bean haulms, and the barley straw. Those are not good feeds for the animals. They are bulky, very poor in nutrition, and that is what you find in most cases in our dairy farms. The dairy industry in Kenya is quite developed, but farmers are doing it with a lot of guesswork when it comes to feeds and feeding. Now, what are the key factors that are limiting livestock feeds and feeding? We don't have enough. That is quantity. We don't have enough quantity. Secondly, we have very poor quality feeds. So quality is also lacking. So that is the key gap that we are trying to address. Secondly, the balance between what the animal requires and what we grow. You have to have an idea of what do I grow? How much do I have in it? What quantity can it supply in terms of dry matter? Then what does the animal require? And the requirement of the animal is based on, one, its body weight, the activity, milk production, and reproduction. Once that balance is made, then we shall have developed a strategic feed reserve for the animals, what we call feed budgeting. This is a major gap that is existing in most farms. Farmers are using a lot of guesswork when it comes to feed. Today they are grazing by the roadside. Tomorrow he has a bit of mabebe. The other day he has a bit of wheat straw. The other day he has a bit of Kikuyu grass here and there. So it's not consistent because there is a lot of guesswork. That is the gap that we are trying to fill when it comes to feed. Yeah, there are still some specific gaps that we need to address. Today, a farmer has asked me, how do I improve my silage quality? I have sunflower and I have maize or sorghum for silage, and I want to use the combinations. Already there is a gap there. The farmer wants to take it to adaptive stage, but we should start it from the applied in small bit. Then see what are the best bets. Then say, okay, these combinations would be a particular gap now to address for the farmers. Then we take it for adaptive, then we upscale with the farmers.
Sure.
That is on how to improve quality of conserved feeds. Another area that I'm working on currently now is I'm evaluating different forages that are ideal for forage-based system in 3 localities. Like we are working in Olenguruoni, we are working in Rongai, and we are working with Tulaga catchment. In those areas, I've identified different forages to grow and how we can use the different combinations to make forage-based dairy system work in those key areas. It's good to start on pilot, then you upscale. You start with a small number of farmers and you upscale. Yeah, like the Tulaga catchment can be a good pilot for the whole of Nyandarua County. And so is Rongai pilot for the whole of Nakuru County. And especially the midland transition areas of Nakuru. Then the Molo catchment would be quite good for Olenguruoni and the Kuresoi South and Kuresoi North. So that is currently how we are approaching the gaps that we are doing. Another specific area is different rations, how to formulate rations for different areas. So